Hi there. Welcome, everybody. So thrilled to have our award winners here. Welcome and congratulations. So we're going to go ahead and start while others join us. So welcome to the Non-Traditional Employment and Training Conference titled Building Partnership to Advance Success of Students Pursuing CTE Fields of Study. The purpose of the conference, as you know, is to examine the nuts and bolts of partnerships in CTE, particularly for students who are pursuing gender non-traditional occupations and fields of study. And I'm Dina Refke. I am director of the Center for Women in Government and Civil Society at the University at Albany, where we administer the non-traditional employment and training program that works with state colleges across New York State to help them recruit and retain more students who are pursuing gender non-traditional fields of study. We provide our services all for free and is supported by the department, the New York State Department of Education Department. And I'm pleased to be joined here by our colleagues from the State Education Department, Jeff Murati and Kim Mead. So there's no doubt that partnerships are really important in creating, establishing, sustaining, and keeping those partnerships with academic institutions, with businesses and industry, with government and community organizations is really critical to meeting the needs of students, from providing internships and apprenticeships and employment opportunities to recruitment and to addressing basic needs and social determinants of academic success, including housing, food, childcare, transportation, also mental and physical health. And really, when organizations come together and leverage those resources that they have and the expertise that they have, it goes a long way to ensuring that collective goal of advancing CTE student success. But building and sustaining effective partnerships is not easy. It's a very difficult task, and that's why we're dedicating this whole entire conference for it. There are several inhibiting factors, including, of course, financial and human resources, and the constraints that we all have, which really limit the support we have from that allows us to move a partnership from the stages of exploration and interaction to the stages of real authentic partnerships that are based on shared governance and shared leadership, shared goals, shared mission. And so partnerships also really take a lot of time and a lot of effort to nurture and to take root and to build that trust between partnering organizations and to yield the fruits that we all are looking for. So there are also other hindering factors, such as geographic dispersion, especially in our rural communities, and of course, also the different institutional norms and practices, which may create redundancy and a competition. But thankfully, there are also a lot of facilitative factors, a lot of conditions that would help us drive success in the area of partnerships, such as building shared leadership, shared governance, coordinating resources, and really helping to reduce those redundancy and duplication. So today, we hope we will spotlight some of these dynamics of partnership and how partnerships are employed, how they are advanced to advance, how are they employed and established and nurtured and cultivated to advance CTE student success, especially CTE students who are pursuing fields of study that are non-traditional for their gender. So welcome again. And I'd like to tell you about the agenda for the conference today. After this segment, we will transition promptly to our keynote presentation by Dr. Sarah Heath. And Dr. Heath is the coordinator of CTE in Colorado, in the state of Colorado. And after Dr. Heath's keynote, we will transition to a roundtable that is entitled Successful Models and Best Practices for Building Academic, Industry, and Community Partnerships. And you will hear from a few of your peers talking about how their institutions have established and sustained effective partnerships. Then we will have our final segment of the conference, which will focus on celebrating the Vanguard Award winners, the 2023 Vanguard Award winners. And the Vanguard Awards have been administered for many, many years by the center to honor and celebrate the accomplishments of students who are pursuing gender non-traditional fields of study. And so it is my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Sarah Heath. And Dr. Heath is the State Director for Career and Technical Education for Colorado and Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at Colorado Community College System. So Dr. Heath spent her entire career in the area of career and technical education and helping learners and educators navigate workforce and educational systems. So she was elected as president of both ACTE and Advanced CTE. She holds a PhD in workforce education, and we are incredibly honored to have Dr. Heath with us, who will tell us about the models, the successful models and best practices they have in Colorado. So welcome, Dr. Heath.
Thank you so much. Always exciting to be with amazing educators from other areas of the country to also just learn from you in ways that we can also elevate some different pieces of best practice. And also, just in case, I actually added some more fun bits and tidbits. So is it okay if I screen share? I did a little razzle dazzle. So if I could do that, that'd be awesome. I was like, ooh, here's some specific data points for New York. So if I could share that, that'd be great. So,
yeah. Dr. Heath, would you like me to stop sharing my screen? Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So thank you so much. Because, you know, like with everything, right, when you're looking at something and the night before, you're like, oh, what about this? This would be fantastic. So again, thank you so much for having me. My name is Sarah Heath, and really excited, in particular, the way you were teeing up and framing things, just celebrating learner success in all the ways that we can is just amazing. So sounds like a great day for everyone involved. This is going to kind of be like a buffet, so to speak. So, you know, I hope you see something you like and you'll take it. It's not like a fixed menu, so hopefully something will speak to you. But with some of the different pieces, just want to kind of level set some different ways of how we present CTE in Colorado and how that relates to some of the work we're talking about today around partnerships, but in particular also how we can position CTE as a solution for some of the different pieces of all sorts of things that we need from a policy perspective, and then how do we help learners. So in Colorado, we really try to position career technical education as the means and ways in which we ensure a thriving Colorado economy. So as I talk today, I'm going to kind of talk about like partnerships in the way to help other people achieve goals, utilizing their data points and some of the pieces that they put forward from the standpoint of how can CTE educators help solve that through partnerships, but also how maybe do we speak a different language and kind of come to industry with industry speak and industry data versus like our education data. So we're going to kind of think through it that way today. So again, we really focus on ensuring a thriving Colorado economy by providing relevant and rigorous education that is connective, responsive, and real. And I think too, just to tee up in the celebration of the aspect of how relational so much of this is, right? So how partnerships are completely and utterly relational. you have your time together you need. You have to be interested in what the partner is sharing, but you also have to be interesting to maintain the partnership, right? And then also just establishing that level of trust, not only with our partners, but with our learners, that we are going to do the best we can to ensure that all partners are part of the overall solution. So when we say connected, responsive, and real, it's about those partnerships. Connected to industry, it's responsive to the needs of industry, and it's real. So how are we embedding a lot of those different experiences we have for students, whether it's apprenticeships, and then down the line through work-based learning, and providing some ways for even your institutions to be seen as work-based learning places for students in case transportation and time are an issue for our earner learners. So just as we get started today, this is kind of just like our framing piece of, when I say CTE, I'm also talking about it from an overall how do workforce and education systems collaborate and connect to help our overall economy in our state. And so just looking through some of the different pieces of why this is relevant and why it should be connected is that overall, from like just a data point, and in particular tying into some of the different pieces around women in industry currently, and then also women in our overall populations across the United States. About 26.8% of employed women are working low-wage jobs. And so from a definitional standpoint, when I also talk about career and technical education, all of our programs have to meet specific qualifiers that are high wage, high skill, or in demand. So how are we helping our learners also understand that CTE can also provide that opportunity to connect across some of those pieces where they're building upon skill sets and then connecting to jobs that might have higher wage potential that are typically non-traditional for females. And so like, how are we also speaking that part as we connect with our partners about how not only are we trying to solve some different elements of how are we doing right and best by our learners, but also how are we helping some of our industry partners that have gaps in talent and management levels, have gaps in talent and some of the different pieces to move things along, because perhaps some of our learners had engaged in a low-wage job and haven't had the opportunity to connect to do those different pieces of education to move them along the pipeline. So again, just from a framing perspective, we're going to focus a lot on kind of how do we speak that part in some of our partnerships. In Colorado, we manage things and connect through what we call our career clusters, which is probably similar to a lot of ways that New York State might manage and connect programming. For us, we manage career and technical education through the community college system. So all K-12 programs, so middle school, high school, our community college programs, and then some of our programs in Department of Corrections, for example, and then partnerships onto some of our related Bachelor's of Applied Science degrees, and also continuation of pathways and programs of study into the bachelor's level and beyond to postgraduate work. So a lot of our work in context is around clusters. And so when we talk a lot about some of the pieces around non-trad in particular, it's tied to these different cluster areas and different programs. So when we work a lot with our faculty across the state and our partners in industry, we're talking about it from a cluster perspective, which might be a little different for them when they might be very specific to the occupational level of an actual position that they're trying to hire for, and some gaps there. So again, when we think about partnerships and meeting people where they're at and also speaking their language, that's also something that I found from just a tidbit of just even something as simple as sharing, when I say this, what does that mean to you in your particular industry specific language? When I use this definition, you might have some other way that you define that, and just having that base level setting conversation around how you can work together, even if your quote unquote language is different, right? Because I don't know about you, but every time I present and connect with our industry partners, they're like, oh, hold on, time out. There's a lot of acronyms on the sheet. For example, please tell me what FBLA is. Like, what, you have this like acronym on here. Like, what does that even mean? Or things like that. Like, sometimes I think it just becomes so entrenched in our nomenclature and the way we present about education that we kind of forget that industry also has their own language, and how do we meet that? So I would always suggest, from again that relationship building, that time together, being interested but being interesting, and that trust building is just laying it all out on the table of this might seem like a very base building conversation, but I just want you to know where I'm coming from, and let me know from an industry perspective, from a K-12 perspective, where are you coming from, so we can have that synergy around our overall goal, which is helping achieve some of these gaps in our overall employment data and supports for learners and people around our communities. So in Colorado, we have some pretty specific ways that we all link together across all of our state agencies. So like our Department of Higher Education, our state agency for secondary and elementary, so our state education agency, our Department of Education, our workforce centers, all of our different groups, our Department of Labor, and we all link together on one set of data, like our true north of like something we're all trying to achieve together. Because I do think that that's also something from a partnership perspective is sometimes we each and all have our own data points. You might have your own matriculation goals you need to reach from like a enrollment perspective to maintain programs for learners. None of you have that, right? Where it's like, let's talk about enrollment and strategic enrollment management. How are we reaching out, connecting, doing some things around matriculation in the programs and supporting people? But we all had different data points and we all had different things that we were pointing to. Like, for example, are you using Bureau of Labor Statistics to get your data around these job openings? Well, what about our state demographer's office? Are we linking with them? What about unemployment insurance? So many sources of data, right? Like tremendous amounts of data. And it was all disparate and we weren't all speaking the same pieces around some of our gaps and some of our things. So I'd say from a partnership perspective, if there is opportunity to kind of establish as a cohort and as a group of what are some data points that you are all as a group trying to speak to your partners about, because in each of you as different institutions, each of you as different people who support your communities can have that kind of aligned goal around some different data points, which might speak to your strategic plan as an institution. It might meet some different needs that other people have. And so again, from that partnership perspective, I'm always looking at how can I meet someone else's needs and help them with their goals, because then they want to be a trusted partner because they know that it's not just about me and my goal around non-trad enrollment and retention in CCE programs. It's about the overall Colorado economy. So again, our kind of point to our true north, so to speak, is around, it's called our Talent Pipeline Report. And it's a pretty cool read. If you're interested, I have some things I'm going to pull out and then kind of speak to some things that I found that kind of tie to some different elements for New York in particular. So with the Talent Pipeline Report, again, it elevates some different pieces of things we're all trying to achieve together, because again, the concept of it takes a village, right? So each department has its own goals they're trying to achieve. How do we all have some synergy around one or two of those together as we try to meet those needs of our communities? So in particular, there's some summary pieces. And for the sake of this conversation, just wanted to draw out how in August of this past calendar year, so in 22, there were a little over 35,000 fewer women in Colorado's workforce than just before the pandemic. And so for us, what we have talked a lot about is CCE professionals and, again, engaged partners in some of this work as it relates to our business and industry partners, our Department of Labor and Employment, is also thinking of that root cause analysis. And so just thinking through some of that, if you have a thought in your mind based on who you've supported as learners, based on your own personal experience or members of your family, or just even things you've read throughout the course of this last year, if you want to hit it up in the chat, what do you think the root causes of that might be? So as we think through the fact that our state, Colorado, that I'm coming from, which there's probably similar data points across the country, just from a generalization perspective, but wanted to get you a tangible number here. So if we have about 35,000 plus fewer women in the workforce than just before the pandemic, what do you think some of the root causes are that are? You can hit up in the chat, or if anyone had a thought, please feel free to unmute and let us know what you think. Childcare, right? So yes, a lot of those different pieces of too, I don't know about in some of your communities, but we're also having burnout too. Yes, burnout. Having to balance all the things too of like maybe being, especially for our women in industry that are not in the education industry like we might be, right? where perhaps they're being a teacher, they're doing their job, they're doing all these different things like during the pandemic where they were trying to help their child succeed, or doing some of those different pieces too of also being a mental health support and provider for members of their team, perhaps, lots of different pieces. And so as we think through like some of the places and opportunities we have to shine as a community within career and technical education, and how can we be a partner in some of the pieces that we mentioned here in the chat? How are we connecting with childcare? And we'll have a thread about that later. How are we doing some different pieces too around providing people opportunities to connect with professionals that can help them manage some of those pieces of that work-life balance as well. So in Colorado, so again, this is from our talent pipeline report. You can see some differences here too, just in our labor force participation amongst males and females, but then we also think about it too demographically based on some broad-based categories of race and ethnicity. And so one particular gap I want to draw your attention to is if you look furthest to your right as you're seeing the screen, is the gap between our Latinx males and females with the workforce participation by gender. And so as we think about some of those reasons why we just talked about root cause analysis of why maybe there's less women in the workforce post pandemic, but then also thinking too, like, are there ways that we can be more culturally responsive in how we provide some of those wraparound services, how we provide some of those partnerships? So really kind of thinking about and honing in on data and why data is important for some of your thoughts around your partnerships in particular, because also you could have that piece of, like I mentioned, right, it's a buffet, not a fixed menu. It's like if you do the buffet, right, if you do the boil the ocean, you might lose sight of some of that momentum and synergy you have to help establish partnerships. Because if you, it's like we mentioned too, like with burnout in particular, that's true for us too, right? As people that are trying to be problem solvers, people that are trying to connect our learners to high wage jobs in non-traditional fields. If we get too broad-based and cast our net too wide, then you might not have the momentum that can help you keep going with some of those different pieces of partnerships. So finding that tangible partner that can help you with particular high gaps in your data is where we work with our CTE programs most specifically. But then also to add into overall pieces around not only from the non-traditional gender participation, the race and ethnicity gaps, also looking at our population from our demographer's office, like what are our projections for different pieces of people participating in the workforce versus also our projection in ages, and how are we going to combine efforts with other groups and other partners that might be looking at particular groups and how they re-engage people in maybe a second piece. How do we utilize some of our partnerships for that? We're going to talk a lot about mentorship a little bit. And how do we use some of the pieces of these demographic projections to also help us have talented professionals that can help connect with our learners? So what is New York's data imperative? Like, what is important to you as a state? So just thinking through that, and it might be different based on, I know, for example, I'm from Colorado. Well, I am in Colorado now, but we have Denver and we have everyone else. It's kind of like our state imperative of data, how people speak about our state. And so just thinking about other things too about where you're geographically situated, your data imperative might be different than some colleague that's on this call from a different institution. And so just thinking through some of our different resources and different pieces. So like with some of your different data points around your Department of Labor connecting through is just thinking about like your actual workforce and like who is currently in the workforce, where are some unemployment gaps, and where are there some different pieces of how your state compares to some overall pieces. And so just thinking through here, when you tie into some of the differences between 2020 and 2022, and some of those percentage of the population that are, again, just from a different demographic, like benchmarking perspective, where you have just the overall breakdown of your market share of females that could be in non-traditional careers. But thinking through the unemployment rate and some of those changes and pieces around, looking at like there's a lower unemployment rate for females in both of those different quote unquote like pre-pandemic, emerging from pandemic timeline, But at the same time, we don't necessarily know what that means as we look further down into the data points of, does that mean that there's just differences in reporting? Had they left the workforce altogether but aren't claiming unemployment insurance? Like some of those different pieces that sometimes the data doesn't tell us. So then how are we using some of those opportunities to dive deeper into some different pieces and use other resources that might be more qualitative in nature, right? And so thinking through that, I found this pretty cool site. It's called the statusofwomendata.org. And they had different pieces around the different states and some different aspects of connection points where they got some data, either quantitatively from survey or census data, but then also qualitative from like some different focus group participation, reading different grant applications for different areas of pieces. So exciting news. Did you know that you are ranked #1 for work and family connections? So snaps, yay, good time. And what that technically means from this rating perspective is that there's different opportunities for, there's some different aspects of like work and family and ties into some different aspects of childcare, some different things like that. So there is momentum. So that is awesome. So we're going to build upon those partnerships and talk through that. There was this one piece too, just around the actual employment pieces that was interesting around employment and earnings. And then also #5, so in the top 10, how great is that? So different pieces of employment and earnings and those different aspects. When you think though and connect to looking at some particular pieces within what that means though, you can see that there's some different aspects of just the wage ratio kind of bumping up, being ranked #2 in that. But then if you think about labor force participation rates, like that's where I think, how are we getting people re-engaged in the workforce and how is CTE possibly the answer for that? And again, back to my Colorado example of how we have 35,000 less women in the workforce now, wondering if your data is similar in that nature, looking at this difference in the pieces here of the participation and then the overall aspect of some of that. But then when we look at like poverty and opportunity, so thinking through how sometimes, again, CTE is high wage, high skill, in demand, how do we help people have some more mobility and seek some opportunities to connect through CTE programs to modify and shift maybe where they're at now? And so again here, this is a piece that just to draw your attention to is the difference between people that are percentage above poverty and kind of where those pieces rank. So again, tying back to how do we help cultivate partnerships to help learners see opportunities to engage in high skill, high wage, in demand career and technical education opportunities. So when you think about how a lot of things, again, you all know this because you're amazing educators. Education is one of those pieces that we know still and how we have different pieces of other like competency-based learning, things like that. But there's still some pieces around that median annual earnings by gender as it relates to levels of education. So thinking through these pieces where there are some gaps in opportunity from the standpoint of partnerships. So as we have here some of the different like wage ratio pieces, and we look at some of the places where maybe we have an opportunity to connect and work through some like matriculation pieces, how do we connect with partners who are serving students that maybe aren't at the bachelor's level yet? And how do we get them before they disengage from whatever institution they're participating in their education? So if, again, career and technical education is that opportunity, and it is a really cool space, I believe, because where I have arrows is where a lot of CTE programs from the secondary perspective are providing students opportunity to connect, again, to high wage, high skill, in demand jobs. So less than a high school diploma and that wage gap in those pieces for our learners, how are we helping identify career and technical education programs as a partnership and develop a program of study that relates to some college credit, ties in some different pieces, again, around work-based learning and maybe some credit for prior learning for industry recognized credentials? How are we tying and threading all that together and showcasing that to partners to help with some of this gap piece for our employers? So again, back to that level setting piece of 26.8% of employed women are in low wage jobs. So again, how are we looking at career and technical education as a solution for that. So thinking through some different pieces around your own Department of Labor in New York, and there was a report, and I have the URL at the bottom too, and I'll put it in the chat after I'm done screen sharing. But there was a report about women in the workforce for 2022 that was released in December and had some interesting pieces of data and elements in there. And from a partnership perspective, thinking about your Department of Labor, your workforce system, your we call them one-stops here in Colorado, but thinking through like your systemness of employment services and some of those different pieces of things that also tie to WIOA from a federal law perspective, and how there's some synergy with Perkins and some things there too. And so how, when they're citing here, the department referred these women to counseling or school or skills development and training for jobs and careers to earn for higher earning potential, and then how many were also referred. So like what opportunities are there for CTE programs from a partnership perspective? So if there is some goals and if there's some citation here about how people are being referred, are they being referred? We have in our state, it's called the Eligible Training Provider List. And so a lot of people are being referred to programs and training and all those different pieces of education and training programs because of this list. But where's the partnership that's happening for the CTE program? So if people are being counseled and if people are receiving skills or are being sent to places for that piece, how are our post-secondary institutions, how are all those partnerships really occurring and how is that warm handoff happening? So I would say from the standpoint of one really great partnership that I know that we've tried to incubate really, really specifically in our state is those pieces around if a quote unquote, for lack of a better word, client is being served by workforce, when they become a learner at one of our post-secondary institutions, how is, again, that there should be no wrong door to be able to ask a question. So how are we having that training go both ways, where people that are referring and placing learners in our programs from workforce know about some of the pieces of things that we can offer, and how do you know about some of their services? So again, you don't have to be all things to all people as post-secondary educators and programs. How are we connecting and linking things and braiding things together? So I would say from an opportunity, that is one that I think a lot of times, just because again, it is very, as was said so eloquently in the intro, it's so human resource dependent, right? And so how are we creating some of those different pieces to maintain those relationships when possibly the people in the mix have changed? So how are you institutionalizing that? How is it just the way you do business? So again, thinking back through the career clusters is how can CTE programs, again, be solutions for that, and do workforce partners know that? So when we think about some things that we try to do more specifically to our data pieces is when we talk about some of our career and technical education programs, we provide some sample dashboards for CTE enrollment as opposed to the entire market share. Since we do that a lot for employment data, right? We're looking at the overall market share of men or women we have within workforce that are in different careers. Are we doing that for programs too? And how can we be partners in supporting people in doing that? So if we think about this is a sample. So one of our schools, it's about a 50-50 split within their entire population in their institution. But when you look at the CTE programs, it's weighted a little bit more heavy on the male side than a 50-50 split. So how are we ensuring that if there is an equal market share of females and males in programs, how are we making sure that people know and understand all the opportunities and that they don't feel as if there's only particular opportunities for them because of how they identify? Then we take it a little step further, again, back to the clusters, is that we look at the career clusters for that institution and then also match that to the overall percentage and then the percentage of participation in that cluster. So for example, this one is agriculture, and I just selected that because A, it was number one on the list in alphabetical order, but also it's not considered non-trad in nature a lot of times. But if we look at this data, for example, 75% of the students participating and have enrollment in this particular cluster area are females. So it's an overrepresentation of the percentages that are in the breakdown of the overall market share. And so how are we working with industry partners to make sure that all students see opportunity to be part of this career cluster and can actually have some employment opportunities at the end of the day and have that mentor. And then two, if you look at it from a race and ethnicity breakdown, looking at those gaps too, and some of the percentage overall, but then percentage in the cluster. So there's an overrepresentation of our white students in this cluster as opposed to an underrepresentation of Latinx in this. So how is that educator, again, connecting with learners? How are business and industry partners connecting? And how do we ensure that we're serving everyone in our community with an equal opportunity to participate in different areas? We link all of this personally to our strategic plan. So again, that we can identify places where we can help support other people within their data and within places that they're hoping to shine and connect to achieve some of those pieces. And again, we say we're leveraging CTE to strengthen our communities. So again, being seen as maybe a potential solution where there's gaps. So we have some things to our work. So just wanted to mention that as it relates to, you can see here, we have a whole entire goal around partnerships. So again, I think just aligning those pieces of synergy around your institutional strategic plan, your department level goals. Do you have a partnership goal? How is it measurable? What are some things you're trying to do? Because I think once you get it on paper and you're able to identify some strategies, then it's something that you can always check into instead of it being partnerships is a luxury that I wish I had more time to do. Because I feel that way all the time where I'm like, oh, if I could only go to this chamber meeting so I can meet with XYZ so that my learners have more access to internships. It's set as a goal and it ties into the work. Usually that one of the barriers is that people just the time and talent, and it's not necessarily positional in your description of your job. So how do you make it more entrenched in the way you do business? And can you elevate that by tying it to your strategic plan? We also in Colorado align to a national vision and career. Advanced CTE is a national association for state leaders of career and technical education. And so they have one particular principle that we leaned into, and it's that each learner feels welcomed in, is supported by, and has the means to succeed in a career preparation ecosystem. So within this principle, we really kind of identified one of these first pieces of that statement. And so just want to see if you could take 1 minute and just think on what makes you as a person feel welcomed in a new place. And so just think on that for 1 minute. So what makes you feel welcomed in a new place? And then if you would indulge me and just type it into the chat, but don't press enter just yet. So what makes you feel welcomed in a new place? We'll give it another second. Okay. And then, all right, so I'm going to count down to 10, and if you could press it. Ready? 1, 2, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enter. Perfect. So if we look here and we have some different synergy around a lot of amazing things, right? So how much though, if you look at all of these things that are listed here, it's all about the people, right? It's about the relational aspects that we first talked about when we started having our overall conversation. It's the friendly people, it's the openness and acceptedness, it's inclusion, it's a supportive environment, someone just saying hi, a human connected, being welcome, being seen, having people feel friendly, reaching out and connected. There are so many points in time when we talk to learners about their experience that we don't necessarily have the opportunity to connect with them and ask them those pieces. So I'm going to stop this share for just 1 second so I can show you a website. And within those pieces too, just thinking through, again, how are we making sure that we are thinking about our learners and things that they may need. So again, back to my association I was talking about, Advanced CTE. We're working in our state, we received a grant to really work on with learners, not for learners, elevating learner voice in career and technical education. And with this, there's this whole really cool toolkit about even assessing your commitment to engaging learners. Because again, when we talk about partnerships, it's not just partnerships with other agencies, it's partnerships with our learners, right? So again, so excited that you're recognizing your learners. That's amazing, providing awards and connecting through that. So when you click through the toolkit, one thing that we've really leaned into is these particular questions here around elevating learner voice. So what supports and services have they received in their program to feel successful? So just from the standpoint of, again, having that time to maybe do some, when you're doing like course exit pieces, if you're also looking at people that maybe didn't matriculate to a program and seeing the why. So again, here, there's a focus on relationships, which we all just mentioned, but then there's also some questions here around some challenges and barriers you face in participating and being successful in. So I would just offer that as just an idea of maybe a place to kind of lean into some questions if you're thinking through some pieces on how you engage your learners as one of the actual stakeholder groups that you want to connect with from the standpoint of those partnerships. And then just thinking through as we kind of get some elements too here is just some quick actions that I think from the standpoint of how can we, just some quick action suggestions. One thing that we did is we provided an opportunity for people from other programs, so either other institutions or even people that were alumni of programs from other institutions to do a fresh eyes activity. So again, thinking through some ways that maybe there's some barriers that we don't even know about because we have been in our amazing lab space, our classroom space. We've been working with students in the same literal space for a while, right? So it's like that fresh eyes activity, having people look at the website, look at the marketing materials, and also, are there common talking points that everyone has about programs? Are there common talking points people have around establishing partnerships? And then just that walk about a lab space or a campus, et cetera. So again, back to those pieces of the questions I just shared. So not without learners. Some quick actions we can do is just surveying exiting non-traditional learners to see what potential barriers were and how we might have some action plans to really stop some of those pieces from maybe occurring that we just weren't even aware of were barriers, or also just perceptions of things that we need to do a better job around our talking points. Advisory committee participation, we are requiring every advisory committee in our career technical education system to have learner voice on their advisory committee to really make informed choices and decisions about partnerships, programs, and just providing that, again, we're not doing anything about learners without learners. And the overall welcome redesign, almost every one of you in the chat mentioned it was about the welcome, right? It was about that friendly face. It was about that connection. So just an overall welcome redesign, like what communications are learners getting before they show up in a classroom? What communications are learners getting before they go and work with an industry partner? What does signage even look like where they're being welcomed in and being called in and not necessarily seeing and having that feeling that we hear so much from learners around the imposter syndrome of like, do I belong? So these are just some quick action suggestions that we've had from people in our state. And then also, what can CTE programs do? So thinking about when your courses are offered from an instructional organization piece, are they offered at times when learners can participate? If childcare, again, back to our first chat storm, if childcare is a huge barrier, how are we linking and doing some of those different pieces? It relates to the wraparound service, but it also relates to when courses are offered. And are they offered too from a variety of standpoints now that we have some more online opportunities? Multi-generational approaches, how are we working with our high school programs to do work-based learning, maybe for our learners, but then also how are family members, so how are parents being also brought into the fold? So how are we establishing multi-generational approaches from a post-secondary perspective, but then also how are you connecting with a high school program to maybe do some of that pieces around early access to college programs for everyone in the family? Wraparound, looking at and thinking through, one place where we've been leaning in hard is transportation stipends. In addition to childcare and really working and expediting some of the pieces around our early childhood education programs, being that hub for everyone in the school and in the community so that learners feel comfortable and confident because they know that their child's being cared for physically on site with them when they're learning. And how are we having employers do that too? So much research shows when companies provide childcare, it's like night and day, the productivity, because people feel super comfortable and confident because they know where their child is. They know the quality because they're a part of the design of it. And then how are we as programs modeling inclusive hiring practices? How are we linking to apprenticeship programs? How are we as local leaders, as state leaders, having more inclusive hiring practices for our own programs? And then, like, how can partners help? And so I think, too, one thing that I always start, because people are like, I want to host a work-based learning student, but I don't know if I have that much time from a business and industry perspective. So how do we just help them in connecting through things they can do, like demystifying career choices? How are they doing community days where they're having people come in, especially the construction and manufacturing industry, so that all family members in a community can see what those positions are like now, and how it might not be from a labor and physical activity perspective, how some of that has shifted and changed in those industries, where it's inclusive of everyone that has different abilities. And then also recruitment events, public relations, how can they be the spokespeople to help us talk about programs and enrollment in non-trad as part of an overall public relations strategy for demystifying those careers? And then also always having an opportunity for them to provide a chance to be mentors through advisory committee. And are they offering scholarships to learners to make sure that they can continue to be part of a program? And then too, just as we kind of close out today, just thinking through what action steps are you hoping to take towards reducing some barriers for your future learners? So what is one thing that maybe you're hoping, and sometimes we say, you know, if we put it out into the universe, then it's something that we have at the core of some of our work. Again, if we're documenting from the standpoint of a goal, sometimes it's easier to achieve that partnership aspect. So if you could just think on what action step, it could be super, you know, just a couple of words, an action step you want to take towards reducing barriers for your future learners. So just think on that for another minute. And you could start typing it into the chat, but we'll wait just a minute to press enter so we can see everybody's kind of at the same time to see some synergy around that. So again, what is an action step that you want to take towards reducing barriers for your future learners and people that you support? Okay, it's going to count down. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So again, looking at this, so awesome. So thinking about advisement on the first day, linking in and understanding what people might need. So again, just taking that opportunity, increasing access. It's amazing. I'm at a conference right now, and we had the person who was California Educator of the Year was our keynote, and he was talking about how he just took the opportunity. He had a way to have another person be in the classroom and do some different things. And he just individually spoke to each student about their career goals, and he was shocked at how many of his students told him that no one had asked them. These were graduating seniors in high school, and no one had asked them about what their future plans were. I think because, again, we have time and talent constraints, all these things. So again, from a partnership perspective, how is it relational? How are we connecting? And again, what's amazing too, I think the very last one in the chat was talking about how are we building that trust. So again, it's all relational, it's all connecting, it's all about partnerships. And so just thank you so much for participating in the chat and connecting through. And again, hope you got one little small nugget to take away as an action step. And thank you for all the amazing work you do day in and day out with all your learners that you support.
Dr. Heath, this has been really incredibly valuable. I'd like to open it up for any questions that our participants may have for Dr. Heath. And while people are thinking about their questions, I just am really struck by what you said about that it's all about really putting yourself in some other people's shoes and meeting the needs of others. And that paradigm shift of that you are not just working to advance students' education, but you are really building the economy. That's the framing that I think is very important in partnership. It's even in your tagline of connected, responsive, real. And it really takes that shift from shifting the vision or almost expanding, the horizon of your goals and your mission to include the community and the economy. And to really think about what industries' needs are, what's in it for them to partner with you. We almost like single-handedly just have this narrow view of we have our goals, we want them met, and we don't think about what the other entity is doing. So it really takes that answering that question of what's in it for them and how can I meet their needs. And this point about data and using one shared data platform as a means of really unifying the goals, the shared goals, is really incredibly interesting. I'll stop here and see if anybody has any questions for Dr. Heath. Please unmute yourself and start talking. All right. Any questions? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you again. Go ahead.
I actually do have a question.
Antoinette, go
Yes.
ahead, Antoinette.
Hi, my question pertains to the industry collaborative piece. I was curious as to what titles from your office met with industry leaders, because some of us come from very large institutions with a lot of different people have similar or the same responsibilities. So, so as not to overburden the industry and to have a conflict going on, if you could just share with us what that structure looked like.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And that's actually to the pieces around the talent pipeline report and the one source of data. It was also industry saying, like, y'all are exhausting us. Like, y'all need to get your act together as education and come to us with like one ask, one connection point. So yes, totally. Yes. So what we've actually done is we don't go to industry to come to another one of our meetings and connect. We go to wherever they're convening. So we have in our state, we have sector partnerships for a lot of the different industry sectors. So I'm really glad you asked that question. So like different, like advanced manufacturing, for example, there's like a sector partnership where all the manufacturers are coming together. They're all meeting. And what we do then as educators is we're like the flies on the wall that are observing their conversation, their business meeting about their needs. We're the ones then establishing that follow-up piece around, we heard you say that X competency is important to you. We're going to add that to X program from like a state level perspective. So for us, it's a lot of like state coordinated efforts, but all of our educators are invited to be part of that observation type piece of like the meeting that's occurring. Do that a lot with industry association level meetings too. Like we have, we call it the Colorado Technology Association, but it's all of our different IT leaders and IT industries in our state that are already collaborating and coming to an association meeting. So even if educators can't come to that, what we do is we're able to get like the different, for lack of a better word, minutes from the meeting to then send out to all of our educators in that industry sector. Because so many of our educators too, right? I mean, you don't have release time to go to meetings also. I mean, that's a piece around these barriers as well, right? So how are we making sure everyone has the same level of access to information that industry is providing us through that advisory committee structure? We also have like subject matter experts that kind of lead. We have discipline chairs, so to speak, but for the entire system. So we have like a discipline chair that then would, when we have all of our discipline level meetings, would also report back out in a format much like this, right? Where they're having like a summit, so to speak, of their discipline area. And we do that every September. So that's how we're kind of like linking in institutional leaders that have many hats, especially in our rural colleges, where they're like, I also am driving the bus for our, community college basketball champion, I mean, there's all the things, right? So how are we making sure that we're just like always that cycle of information is coming out to everyone so that everyone has access? do we think that teenagers are aware of all the options and opportunities available? So we actually, and some of these things around synergy and partnerships is because it's our governor's expectation that we're all working together and we're all talking through some different things. And so from the teenager aspect of, that's again why that's why we're positioned in our community college system, because then we're like talking both directions. So reaching up and working with our four-year institutions and then working down, so to speak, with K-12 partners, because it's one source of things about career and technical education and about career advisement and development too, because we also work with all the school counselors in our state. So just thinking through all those terms and resources and connecting pieces around that. And what we found is that when we do that learner voice piece, it's the gatekeepers of the learners who are telling them it's not for them. So a lot of gatekeeping happening where it's in their mind, there's only particular things that relate to different like occupations from that aspect of like, how am I successful? And there's a definition of success for every single community. There's a definition of success for every single piece of that. So what we've been doing, and someone just mentioned it here, so the peer-to-peer learning. So what we've been doing is having that mentorship piece happen where we have a lot of students who have recently had success in matriculating in a CT program or even in a career, actually mentor and speak with our students starting in 8th grade before they make their high school choices and decisions about their actual like program of study and about their course selection. So, but that's critical. And that's where too, back to the partnerships, how are industry helping you with that public relations aspect and talking about their industry in a way that is appealing to like multiple generations and the value and like what value proposition is there, because we found in our research that different generations of people in our state, the value proposition is different. For some generations, it's not about like it's high wage and I can do this. It's about how am I a value add to my community and how am I making a difference because of this industry? So just like thinking through that is literally could be an entire team's work, right? So how are we leveraging industry that might have more budget for public relations and marketing to help us with that and be part of the solution from that pipeline perspective?
We have Dave and then Susan. Dave.
Hi, thank you very much. This was a great presentation. I appreciate that, Sarah. I have a question. Do you have in Colorado experience with speaking with industry or working with industry on like, specifically working with community colleges and CTE in lowering some of the barriers to entry? So specifically with four-year degrees, right? And so there's many industries, big industries in these high skill fields and high demand fields that often require that four-year degree before even entry. And so I just wanted to know if the state has sort of tried to work on that. It's happening nationally, obviously, but it's different in different areas.
Right. No, so great question. Thanks for asking that. And if you Google, it's called Skillful, and it's actually it's through the Markle Foundation, which is New York based, and thinking through how are we doing more skills-based hiring. And so we have employers that are literally like signing pledges, so to speak, to have it be about skills and those connection points. What I've personally found is that a lot of times we have CEO level positions or presidents of a board being like, that is our jam, that is what we're going to do. And then when the rubber meets the road, you see postings that are still listing pieces of paper. And then sometimes to be specific about the actual degree type, where there's also a lot, y'all know from your own institutions, there's a lot of crossover between different discipline areas, and how are those connected and threaded too, to have I think someone mentioned in the chat around those essential skills for like a whole sector of an industry, right? And then what training are they getting on the job? But also like, how are we also honoring and recognizing industry recognized credentials in that space too, as some ways that we can do some different elements of hiring. But what I found is that we have some strong initiatives, but it's being accepted at this level of like, we're going to do this. But then when you look at job postings and when you look at also too the technology tools they use to actually read resumes and read applications, that's not aligned just yet. And so like if other people have amazing suggestions for that, I would be loving to get an email from you about how we can connect through that, because philosophically people are on board, but then when you actualize it, you're still seeing the postings say those things, but you're also knowing that they're still using the same exact software that's looking for that and not even giving people the opportunity to not be weeded out in the process, right? Because they don't meet some of the qualifications that are listed because the AI is looking for it. So, so excellent question. And I know that's something that we're trying to do a better job of.
Susan.
Hi, everybody. So I have some of my colleagues here from BMCC, and I was asking Dave's question too, but I just wanted to draw your attention to a new initiative, which is under the CUNY umbrella, and this might help you in Colorado. It's the CUNY Inclusive Economy, and it ties together 27 major corporations, Amazon, Google, you name it, and they're now really putting their money where their mouth is, and they put funding in place so that we can connect a pipeline for students who, two of mine are represented here today. Yai is a wonderful Latina animator, and Diona is going to take over the world with as a Linux administrator. But is there a way that maybe through a co-op program or apprenticeship program, they can take their talents? Yai's just 19, she was 19 in December, and really put all those world-class talents to work for industry, get some training while she does her degree. So we're through the CIE group and through my colleagues, Provost Wong is here today, and Dean Zumo and Antoinette as well. We're trying to figure out what that pipeline can look like in the future. So recognizing these students early on in that they're ready for their industry, but the question is their industry ready for them? So we're trying to, bring a lot of those together, but New York's trying. And for me, I've been teaching for many, many decades. This is really new. So we got our fingers crossed for all this stuff.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Anybody else? All right. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Sarah. Dr. Heath, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. We really appreciate it. And this was really important to have that exchange across state. It's we're fortunate to have you here with us. Thank you. And so,
my pleasure. And thank you so much. And congratulations to the winners of the awards. I just love that. That's an amazing way for a capstone for your day. And thank you to all the educators out there making it happen day in and day out, because as an industry, education's an industry, right? As an industry ourselves, we all need to come together and support each other. And I'm so thankful to be here with y'all, and congratulations again to our winners. And have a great rest of the day.
thank you so much, Dr. Heath. And so with that, we will transition to our roundtable. I will ask my colleagues, Esther and Kyung, to please spotlight our speakers. First, we go with Dave Ahrens. And Dave, I know you've been having some internet problem. Hopefully now it's been fixed. So Dave is from Westchester Community College. Julie Bachillon from LaGuardia Community College. Dr. Robin Cole from Monroe Community College. Joe Keegan, who's the president of North County Community College, and Dr. Diane Pitlack-Flamia from Niagara County Community College. So our roundtable is about really best practices that your peers are doing, your institutions are doing. And so I really encourage you to engage with your peers. But my first question to the panel is really to introduce yourself properly, more so than we have introduced you. Tell us about your role in the institution and your relationship with CTE at your college. So we'll start with Dave.
Thank you, Dina. And hi, everybody. So my name is Dave Ahrens, and I'm the Division Coordinator of Career and Technical Education here at Westchester Community College. I've been at WCC for only 2.5 years, hired during the COVID pandemic, and my first job in higher education. So I'm learning about all the systems and all the processes that help to sort of create these partnerships in order to provide success for our students. SUNY has robust, amount of CTE programs over the years. Before I arrived, has improved student outcomes through a number of career development and student success efforts. In the non-traditional area, we made great strides in student participation and completion, mainly in the big buckets of women in STEM, men in nursing, and men in early college age childhood education, as evidenced here today in Joseph Goldstein, the WCC Vanguard Award winner. So much of the work in increasing student participation in these areas is providing space and time. That's something that I think Sarah spoke about, for students in these areas to see themselves in these careers when they are going to be a minority in that field, right? I myself am a non-traditional learner because starting my career in social work, my mother was my role model. So when I got to social work school, I've definitely tried to connect to the other men that were doing that and wanted to do something similar to me. So that's my little intro, and go on to the next person.
Thank you so much, Dave. Move on to Julie.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am from LaGuardia Community College. My role is focused on small business outreach and employer relations. I've been here at LaGuardia. We're part of the CUNY system. Just for some context, we're located in Queens in the city, but on the westernmost part of Queens. Been here at LaGuardia for about 6 years. I work out of our Career and Technical Education Assistance Center, which we dubbed the career services for our ACE programs, our continuing education. But the college has been moving more towards a unified approach to our work with partnership and with our programs. And so my role has really transitioned to more of a sector-based approach, working with all of our CTE programs across the college in partnership development in more of that sector-based, focusing on all of our healthcare programs, all of our tech programs, and really an industry approach across the college. The emphasis is really on looking at all of our different stakeholders, our students, our program, I call our program directors, whether they're in our certificate or our degree courses, and our industry partners. What are the needs that they have? How are we bridging those gaps? How are we making sure that our students have what they need to be successful to industry, and that industry is getting the talent that they need for the roles that they're trying to fill? Really in connection with what we're hearing already is, how do you get our employers to consider our certificate and associate degree students for roles that they've usually only accepted bachelor's degree students? How are we keeping pace with the change in skills that are evolving rapidly, especially in the last 2 years? So it's really those conversations with all of our stakeholders, and how are we making sure that our students are truly prepared for that lifetime career of really continuing to reskill and grow in their career.
Thank you, Julie. Next is Dr. Flemia Diptek.
Thank you. You could just say Dr. Flemia is fine. I know that's quite a mouthful. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Academic Affairs for Nursing and Physical and Allied Health here at Niagara County Community College. We're a SUNY system. I'm a registered nurse, so overseeing all of these healthcare fields with the gender non-traditional area is very important to me. Not only trying to meet the healthcare needs, as you all know, it's growing, and to meet the needs of the community and to assist learners, and specifically our gender non-traditional students, is a very important role over here. Of course, it takes not a village, but a college to develop partnerships and to do everything that we do over here that's successful. So those will be things that I'll be touching on today. And it's nice to meet everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Flemia. And finally, last but not least, Joe Keegan. Joe.
Thank you, Dina. Good afternoon, everybody. Congratulations to the award winners. It's wonderful to see you celebrated. My name is Joe Keegan. I'm president of North Country Community College. I have been associated with the college stretching back to the late 80s when I was a student here. And I returned and came, just had a wonderful experience at North Country, and then came back and taught for a number of years and then eventually took on some leadership roles. And in my faculty teaching, I oversaw the human services program. We had at that time 2 CTE programs, a generalist human services and a chemical dependency program. And then later on, when I became vice president for academics, I inherited the Perkins grant, and I've been the grant liaison, I think, I go way back with Jeff Moretti, who I see is on the call. So I want to say 2014 or 15. And, honestly, it keeps me, it's easy the further away you get removed from the classroom to get removed from the essential work of what we do. And so having that liaison role in the CT has been really helpful in keeping me grounded. And yeah, I guess that's it. So I look forward to this conversation and delighted to be with this panel.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. Our first question is really, we do understand the work that goes into building a partnership. It's a lot of work, but we want you all to break it down for us. We want you to take us through the process of planning, of establishing a partnership, and really what goes into your thinking to cultivate the trust that we talked about. That is very important, the relations, the connections. How do you sustain it? It's not always easy to maintain that motivation, that mobilization almost of all partners, and to make sure that the partners, or the partnership rather, stays viable, relevant, and really effective. So we'd like to hear from you. Anybody can jump in. Dave, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's really the big difficult piece when you're talking about a big college, right? Of like how to sort of link all the students and all the degree programs with industry on a very massive scale. And so what I found, just being here for a short time, is that really breaking down the big pieces into smaller pieces, smaller sort of ecosystems where you have industry and degree program and students and faculty and sort of areas and workforce development as well, to sort of try to build a pathway. That is what I've seen is sort of where really we have strengths at Westchester Community College. We have faculty that have come from industry and that are very connected to their industry and can provide that type of building and maintaining of relationships, so that students in those areas really get the experiences that they need, and then get enhanced experience by other areas of the college through that degree program and then into that industry. And those partners, because of that history and trust, like you talked about trust, have a trust in those faculty, those people first, and then in the structures, right? And I think that's sort of where we're working on, developing that sort of consistency with the trust in the people and the trust in the structures. And so that's sort of how I can sort of frame it best.
Great, thank you, Dave. Julie, same question.
It's a big question. I think kind of to that point is the starting point is to understand the need, is working with all of those stakeholders to understand what the need is and how can we find partners to meet that need, because it is just too big of a thing to try to tackle all at once. So it's what are the needs of our faculty, of our student, of our programs, and what are the needs that we're hearing from industry? We oftentimes have companies reach out to us going, we need help with this. So I think it's starting with that need and then finding out where those commonalities are that we can build that partnership. I think one of the biggest things for me in trust is that we're following through and saying what we're doing. So as those partnerships are starting, are we truly engaged in that partnership and able to connect with them on what we're saying? And it's a two-way street. Are they meeting us in that process? But I think that's a big part of it is collaborating. One of the things that's been exciting for me over the last couple of years is seeing the connection between really taking that sector-based approach and seeing internally a lot of our programs collaborating. A lot of our certificate courses are pathways into and after our degree programs. Watching our, certificate directors working with our faculty to say, let's tackle this together. What partners can we bring in collaboratively to get students what they need, both as they're starting their career, as they're growing their career. So that's been one of the exciting things that we're seeing in increasing our ability to grow strong partnerships, is that we're offering more because we're bringing more programs to the table to coordinate with them. Yes, I think that's where I'd start. Another, just a big thing that we look at when we're looking at partnerships is we do a lot with labor market intelligence. We have labor market tools that gather from a number of areas, and it gives us kind of another layer of insight into what's happening in industries and in different sectors across the city to help us find some pain points that are happening either within our programs or within the city as a whole, and gives us some guidance on some potential partnerships to kind of help us narrow down who are some strategic partners that might be very strategic for us to work with. They're doing a lot in this sector. Their skills are a match for what we're training in. So that's another big thing that we use in developing our partnerships.
And it's very interesting because that labor market intelligence seems to be really an operative strategy here. And I know Dr. Heath mentioned, going to their conferences or the events that they congregate at. Are there any tools other than really meeting with them and going to their events and listening to what they're talking about? What other tools do you use to do that labor market intelligence?
We use what's called Lightcast, which is many of you may have known, Burning Glass and MZ recently merged. And so we use Lightcast. I'm obsessed with it. I'm in it regularly. The insights that pulls and gives us insight into what's happening in the industry. What is the terminology that industry is using? We literally use that to understand, is this a growing field? Is it not a growing field? Who are the major players in this field? What are the major skills that they're looking at? What are the skills that the talent pool in this field already have? Are we flooding it with too much talent? Is there a huge need for talent? Are we seeing switches in the skills that are being offered? In our work with readiness, in prepping resumes and interview prep, we're using that tool to understand what is the terminology, what are the needs, what's happening, and then actually being able to look at who are the hiring partners. It can tell us how many people a company has been hiring in that specific occupation or job title in the last year. It's just a wealth of knowledge, but the caveat that we always put on it is one data point. And we take that data point to our industry partners and say, what's really happening, and fill out the narrative, what's actually going on in this space. And it's all those data points kind of coming together that give us the full picture, but it's a really great additional source of data to tackle some of those challenges and really understand what's happening in the larger industry.
Awesome, Julie, thank you. So Dr. Flamia, tell us about the thinking that goes in your head and your colleagues' head as you plan those partnerships and reach out and create them and sustain them. Tell us about what goes through your head.
I would say when I think about partnerships, I think about students. I think about the community, just as Julie had mentioned, the need of the community, the need of the students. I think about recruitment, retention, completion with my students. So there's so many different types of partnerships that we can form. And as I was trying to think today about partnerships, I thought, geez, we do a lot of different partnerships that you really don't even think about that really are assisting with getting these students into our programs. But I think that in forming a partnership, you have to first have common goals. And I think that developing specific roles in your partnership to achieve the outcomes of your partnership is very important. And I know we'll touch on later what went wrong with partnerships, but I think I learned that through a partnership that was not successful in our college, is that you have to have accountability for achieving what you are setting out to achieve through your partnership. And that comes in the form of the communication and the collaboration and the efforts that everybody puts forth in order to make the partnership successful.
And Dr. Flamia, how formal are your partnerships? I'm sure there are a lot of informal partnerships, but you mentioned shared goals, shared expectations, and accountability. Seems to me that this is a very formal partnership that you're referring to, where really there's shared leadership and shared governance and really what we mean by authentic partnership.
And I think that those informal partnerships that you still have to have that communication piece in which you know that you have that common goal that you're sharing in order to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So if it's not an articulation agreement, or it's not some sort of a partnership agreement that's formed between individuals, then you at least have to have participation by all parties to make it successful.
And what happens when the expectations are not met? I don't want to leave that point without addressing that accountability. So what happens when expectations are not met and one of the parties did not meet their ends of the deal?
Well, I think that with a partnership, you typically have one person that's the main individual that's, kind of running the partnership and managing it, maybe looking at data, sharing data, communicating. And I think that individual probably has to ensure that it stays on track. I think if things are falling off track, I learned with another partnership that did, that there needs to be a conversation. There needs to be, just the communication of, why do we have this partnership? Is this working? Let's look at the data. Let's look at the information formed from this partnership. Let's determine if we're going to move forward and what our roles need to be to make it successful for everybody. So that's the avenue I would go.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Flamia. So Joe Keegan, tell us about what goes through your mind and your thinking process as you think about partnerships.
Yeah, I'd like to steal Dr. Flamia's thinking on this. It really is the same for us at North Country, in that we wouldn't exist without them. It really, and my thinking has evolved over time. I think when I first began, the partnership was exclusively with my students, right, as a faculty member, just in terms of the partnership and their education. And then over time, as a chair, and then later on, in different administrative roles, it changed a bit, that the impact of those partnerships, while still fundamentally trying to improve in the CTE world, CTE pathways for students into careers, and to help our regional partners fill jobs and get good candidates into those openings. It has evolved a lot. These days, I'll give you an example, Dina, that I think really helped inform that. So when I was a chair of the human services area, the end result for students was to be able to have a sound experience that would then prepare them for the field and/or transfer. And so working with our area businesses, human service providers, we started at the very first semester that a student was in the program, they would have an experience in that facility. And then we cultivated those relationships so that they would host students for volunteer experiences. And then later on, they would host students for site visits, and then later on, they would host students for shadow experiences, and then culminate it with an internship, so that there were these gradations of involvement where students were really able to get a feel for the field, and the field was able to get a feel for students. And in a more administrative role, we would invite those partners in then to at our program advisory boards to help us have a better understanding about how we could improve what we were doing with students so that they were well prepared for the workforce, and then what the, reciprocally what the employers could do to be able to open up doors for students. And that's a model that has continued to work. We've expanded that further. We are in regular contact with our regional community in a host of partnerships, campus advisory boards, Perkins Local Advisory Council, program advisory boards, and then we sit on many of those as well, so that we're not just asking for people to help us out. We're there to try and help them out. And it really feels like we're in it together. And the pandemic, I think, gave us another opportunity to do that, where and North Country is a small community college within the SUNY system. We're up on the northernmost reaches of the state. So we're about 10 miles from the Canadian border. And we serve Essex and Franklin County, about 90,000 souls between the two counties. But the workforce just dropped out during the pandemic, probably like a lot of other areas. And we stitched together sort of an ad hoc group of North Country and workforce partners to try and respond to it. And then that has just continued to be another means by which we're regularly sharing information about where workforce needs are, and then how we can best align that with either academic or non-credit programming to benefit all. And so, I don't know if I answered your question, but I tried to tell you about what my thinking is like as we develop those relationships.
President Keegan, thank you so much. And we're joined by Dr. Robin Cole. Dr. Cole, sorry that we didn't see you in the
No, I had that. It was confusion on my end when what time I'm supposed to be out here. I get to run around, and when my colleagues, they were like, okay, now the time you're supposed to be on the panel. So that was my fault. I missed. I've been in three different time zones in the last couple of weeks, so I get thrown off of here.
We're thrilled you're here with us now. And Dr. Cole from Monroe Community College, please introduce yourself and tell us about your role in the CTE universe.
Okay, my name is Dr. Robin Cole Jr. I'm the Vice President of Economic Workforce Development and Career and Technical Education here at Monroe Community College and Monroe County, New York, and Rochester, New York. And my role when talking about CTE training is twofold. When you're looking at the non-credit and corporate college training, I oversee those operations in my team that we're looking to develop everything from the micro-credentials to the short-term credentials and certificates. Especially, we're excited about it. If you see my background is the lobby of our new Ford Center, 50,000 square foot Workforce Development Center, which are focused specifically in Industry 4.0 training and mechatronics, robotics. And then on the 6th floor and then the 5th floor of the center is more of the skilled trades sort of training as well. On the CTE credit side of the house, I oversee credit programs in our Advanced Technology Center of precision machining, HVAC, automotive. On our Brighton campus, oversee our optics, engineering technology programs, hospitality, culinary, and I think that's everybody. I don't think I missed anyone there as I'm going through the top of my head. So, I've been engaged in CTE, education I was in Memphis, Tennessee, last 5 years of my career, over everything from aviation programming to business and technologies. I've been in Louisiana, I've been in Florida, and then started my career in State University in Pennsylvania, number of years ago. So glad to be here. Like I said, I apologize once again for the
No, welcome. We're thrilled to have you. So, Dr. Cole, same question about partnerships. We all enter into them very challenging sometimes, but incredibly rewarding. We wouldn't be able to accomplish what we accomplish without them. But I mean, what goes through your thinking when you are planning to partner? How do you start? How do you plan? How do you approach your partners, and how do you maintain the partnerships? A very big question, but break it down for us.
Break it down. Yeah, it is a big question. I think, everything we do is based on partnerships, because it even begins, and when we talk about the type of programming that we have, it's based on, and I'm sure all of us have our industry, advisory committees and advisory boards that we work with, and we're really trying to match up what it is, their wants, but we want to make sure we partner in the sense that now we provide them the workforce. But to me, a partnership is truly is beneficial on both ends. Sometimes, you get in partnerships and you feel like they're always, giving and trying to match what they want, but, are you getting the resources? Are you getting the attendance in the meetings? Are you truly getting, access to them and access to the ability to the learners that we're trying to train, whether it be adult or K through 12, to truly understand what are the types of careers and opportunities that are out there for them. So when I look at partnerships, I always talk about rules of engagement. One thing is I always like to meet individuals on their turf first. Whenever I'm in a new city, a new area, I go to their office, I go to their facilities, I like to tour, so I can truly get an understanding what it is that they do. And when they're asking in the sense of what type of training we're trying to provide, I get a clear picture of their culture, clear picture of the individuals that work there, clear picture of, have they engaged our students before, or the type of employees that they do hire, engage in. So I always like to go to their site. I say, like Willy Wonka, get inside the chocolate factory in a sense. I think the other rule of engagement is, yes, be purposeful. Yeah, just be purposeful in the sense of continuing the partnerships. I tell people it's like relationships. If you're saying I'm in a relationship with somebody and then you talk to them 2 times a year, and then you come back and they're dating somebody else, you wonder why. I was like, well, I hadn't heard from you 6 months. I didn't even know we were still in a partnership. I didn't know we were still working together. And sometimes we have that where, 6 months go by where, before we re-engage with individuals or talk to individuals or see what's going on. It's all about building that relationship. I tell people, even with our, our learners and our students, people come for the experience, but they stay for the connection. And same thing with a partnership. People stay within a partnership because of the connection. A lot of great partners are our alumni or, individuals that have come through some of our doors within the community college, and then going on to the RITs and Rochester universities, but there's still strong connection to the community college. And then, like I said, then you have to bring the right people to the table. I have the second edition of the workforce development, book that came out a couple of years ago. I had wrote a chapter talking about building partnerships and why they're important, but bringing the right individuals to the table for the partnership and what you're trying to do. When do you bring in a dean? When do you bring in the president to sit down and speak on that level? Where is the meeting taking place? Like I say, who's doing the follow-up? Being strategic and how you go about doing those things are very important in order to have successful partnerships. And it's all built, like I said, on relationships. Like I said, relationships matter. And the more and more we have these relationships with individuals, we have a lot of adjuncts sometimes that have relationships within the communities, and tapping into that. Sometimes they have greater relationships than we may with different type of organizations. And then I've been big here of late of bringing the community in, the community partners. We listen to industry a lot, but the community, sometimes they can be the individuals that vouch for you. I say, sometimes you go to a place, they say, I've been all over the country and say, hey, if you were Robin, hey, I vouch for you. Hey, they're with me. They're cool. They're okay. And that's what the community partners do. They let the community know that, hey, they truly have a program that they really want you to be successful. They're really trying to help you out. This is a great opportunity for you to climb into economic mobility. So all those things are important.
Yeah, really important points you're making, Dr. Cole. Thank you so much. So we always say we learn from failures more so than we learn from successes. So the next question is for all of you, our distinguished panel here. Tell us about a partnership that did not go very well as you planned, and what lessons you've learned from that partnership about building effective partnerships. Why don't we go with President Keegan first this time?
You know, there's none that comes to mind at the moment. So if somebody has one that comes to mind, I will think on it.
Okay, anybody can jump. Dave? No?
I'll share one. It may not be where I'm at now, but just in my past experience, and it's kind of interesting because I was just with my Memphis colleagues and seeing how it was going. A relationship, your relationship with the chamber is always important because they have the connection with the business and industry and different things of that nature. And we kind of, Memphis, you have a lot of silos, and I always talk about the levels of value. My team knows I talk about implementation, communication, unification, and then implementation. And it starts with imagination. Imagine, plan, strategy, and focus. But a lot of times when you don't communicate with one another, that's that second level, then that eliminates just the thought process and how things are kicked off. And we had a contentious relationship with our chamber because sometimes when you don't have communication, we had an individual that came in that was head of workforce for the chamber, and they were going to other colleges out of the state and saying, hey, you guys need to do what they're doing, Valencia's doing. And we're saying, hey, we do that. Do you not know what we do? And we had to bring them into our doors and walk around and have some presentations and say, we do this type of training. There's just, you really don't, you haven't come to visit. We haven't done a good job maybe communicating, and maybe you haven't done a great job of reaching out to us as well. And sometimes that can turn into those types of contentious relationships to the, the point when I was there, things were going better, but then I just recently reached out, and the president of the community college down there has pulled out of the chamber circle, whatever they call it, the money that you pay to be a part of that chamber circle. So she's totally disengaged from the chamber, but that's an important entity to be with. So, when you're not having that communication, not understanding one another, then that can lead to a negative partnership and a failure in a sense on all ends.
Sure. Thank you. Communications, always important, really, and engagement. So anybody can jump in.
I will.
On the spot.
I had a partnership that was formed prior to me coming on board in this position, and it was a great partnership. It was with another college. We were providing classes in another county for another population of students. It really had the potential of everything. The problem was there was fall off of administrative on both colleges. The presidents were gone, the admissions directors were changed. So there was a lot of change. And although there was a formal partnership, unfortunately, the partnership just got kind of fell off the radar of many individuals. And so unfortunately, that partnership ended up dissolving. I guess all I can say from that experience is that maybe ensuring that there's regular follow-up with partnerships, ensuring that there's, discussions that are made with the key stakeholders on not only how the partnership's going, but what changes can be made, bringing in data to analyze, to identify areas that need improvement, and just making sure that people are aware of these partnerships.
Thank you, Dr. Fleming. Anyone else? Julie, Dave.
I have an example of it. It wasn't a failure necessarily, but I don't think it didn't reach the fulfillment of what we had hoped that it would. We had engaged with a new employer for a relatively new program. We were very excited. We had a major advocate at that company, and he was very committed to the partnership, to making it work. It was going to be, he was going to provide experiential learning, so really engaging with students in the classroom, then also being a hiring pipeline. And what we learned was that he was a huge advocate, but he wasn't the decision maker. And so he had a certain level of decision making, but maybe not. And I've seen this in other partnerships where you have an advocate who's really on board, really excited to partner with you. But when that transitions to, say, like a hiring partner of, okay, we're going to have, we're going to send you applicants to hire, things like that, they're there can be a disconnect with that hiring manager. And in some industries, you have to have multiple decision makers in that partnership, and it can be hard to get the right people on board. And so here's a partnership. We had great connection with them. They were great at providing some industry advice. They were great at providing some, and they did some career panels, some great things out of that partnership, but it never reached the fulfillment that was our original goal, because we didn't have the right decision makers who were fully committed. We learned a lot from that. I think it's something that I've seen in a couple of places where we're learning how to transition the advocate, how to get the decision makers that advocate is putting us in touch with to become advocates as well. How do we create safe spaces for them to engage with our students, with our curriculum, to decide, okay, yes, we want to be an advocate for this program. And just kind of to a comment that one of my colleagues from BMCC said is, I think where we're seeing the evidence of the significance of this is in the New York Jobs CEO Council, where we're seeing the CEOs of these major corporations are the ones being the advocate. They're the ones saying that this works. And now we're seeing the pressure coming down on all the hiring managers across those organizations really committing. So you're seeing the highest level decision makers being the advocate, and it producing major results. So that's one of the areas that we're learning in partnerships, is to get the decision makers to become your advocates.
Absolutely. And that goes back to what Dr. Cole was saying, right individuals at the table. And yeah, I can definitely relate to that as well. So, so Dave or President Keegan, any examples of?
I think I sort of really like what Julie, you said about the idea of like the right decision makers within industry or even within your college. And so for me, it's not necessarily a failed partnership, but it's more about sort of, you know, moving the systems within the college to meet the needs of that industry, and like doing both at the same time is I find very difficult. And you need to really mobilize lots of people. I think Dr. Flamia, you were saying this as well, that like, you know, so often you start a partnership and you bring people together, and then people leave, and then the work doesn't get, then you have to figure out who's going to be that next person. I tried to do this a little bit with the sort of developing green economy sector work here at the college, and trying to upgrade that whole area with so much coming down, and we're doing it in small pockets. But as we just actually finally like got connected to in the region of Westchester, we have an intermediary now that is actually the hub of bringing together all the partners in the region. And that's sort of what we were needing for a couple of years now. And so now that exists, and you have that intermediary with that type of priority and focus, then we as one of those, entities can now participate in a much more purposeful way.
Yeah. And I'd like to ask the participants, if you have any questions, either put it on the chat or unmute yourself, raise your hand, and please participate in the discussion. But thank you, Dave. President Keegan, any example, or would you like us to move on?
No, thank you for the time to think through one. So, one of the areas that we have to the north of us, we have the St. Regis Mohawk tribe. And we wanted to do a better job at reaching out and supporting the educational aspirations of the tribe and its members. And there was a concern about previous attempts from us and others who didn't sustain the efforts. And so we went into that relationship, with to recommit there and find ways that whatever we were doing would be in the best interest of all parties, and with a real recognition of the tribes concerned. And I think we've seen some real benefits that have come out of that over the last several years, including a personal favorite of mine was we were able to bring a longtime member of the tribe and educational leader as our commencement speaker last year. And that was really a nice sort of capstone of where that partnership has been moving. And we're seeing more students from the tribe tap into our courses. We've been able to offer courses on their territory, but in a way that's really respectful to, again, the tribe's aspirations and not simply at the core of a partnership, right? Both parties benefit. So.
Great. Well, thank you, President Keegan. So along the lines of what Dr. Flamia has talked about, if accountability and evaluation, we heard the keynote speaker, Dr. Heath, talk about, measuring and evaluating and establish metrics for success. That's how you really decide if the partnership is really meeting its goals or not, but setting those goals ahead of time before you even start the partnership so that you're all moving in the same direction. I would like to ask each of you, to what extent is your evaluative component formal, and to what extent do you use really SMART objectives, measurable, quantifiable objectives, or you rely more on qualitative and more input-based or output-based measures? And anybody can jump in.
You're talking about measuring the partnership?
Measuring, yes, the outcomes of the partnership, to
Outcomes
the
of the
extent to
partnership.
which we are advancing your goals. Do you go in the partnership and before you start even working, you plan an evaluation, you develop an evaluation plan rather, and you put together SMART objectives. Here's what we want to accomplish, specifically quantifiable measures, and here's how we're gonna account for whether success, we will have success or not. This is what success will look like for us. Or do you more say, we're going to enter and just test the waters and do our best, and it will be more of an informal evaluative component?
I think with my experience, I don't think I've ever, unless it was something specifically, you're already trying to work towards, and that's the reason why you're engaging in the partnership, because you're saying, hey, we're trying to develop this sort of programming. So, I need to speak to this individual or somebody with this sort of expertise. I think most of the time, in my experience, the objectives have kind of been developed from the discussions and from the partnerships. Usually when you first sit down in a partnership, it's kind of a relationship building, but then it's like, okay, most people ask you, well, how can I help? Yeah. And you start to sit down and you say, okay, this is what we're trying to accomplish. This is possibly some things that you can lend to help us be successful. And you can share, I think a lot of times, we mentioned in the last answer about the data. I think supporting of the story, what you're trying to do can be with the data, but the purpose, it has to be, I think, the baseline, the foundation, what you're trying to do. So you're going in with a purpose of trying to grow a relationship, purpose was trying to supply the region. And then from there, sometimes, there's different objectives that kind of emerge, I think, from my experience. So I don't think I've ever kind of gone in with like, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish. A lot of it comes out of discussions of, okay, how can we help each other? What is it you're trying to do?
So it's more organic.
More organic, yeah. I was a qualitative researcher, so.
Right.
And that's one thing I want, just one quick point, because I wanted to add about that, because I said I'm qualitative and we had some experience before about relationships, that things that drop off. Sometimes you can never discount the fact that the person that was developing a relationship. Sometimes we think, okay, it's just going to be because we're still to college, it's just going to continue on. No, that person sometimes is that person that can make that happen. I've been in my job and they're like, hey, he's been here 3 months, he knows everybody. Well, no, I don't know everybody. But I'm purposeful in how I go about any room. I go shake everybody's hand and talk to everybody, so everybody at least knows me. So that's one thing why things fall off sometimes, is we just think it's just going to be automatic because it's the college, because it's the training center. They're just going to continue to build with us. No, somebody, it's that person that was enabled to engage and create that relationship.
Absolutely. It's all about the relationships, isn't it? Yep. Anybody else?
I'll go next. I think for me, being in nursing, physical, and allied health areas that all have programmatic accreditations require me to really be looking at the data of the outcomes of the students in our programs. So if I'm forming partnerships with high schools, with other colleges, with clinical partners, anything that I do, I think that the success of those partnerships require me to assess and evaluate often. Luckily, through the Perkins grant, I do have a retention specialist. So that retention specialist specifically disaggregates my data for my program outcomes, and I can hone in specifically on the different, minority groups, the gender related groups, all of the different groups of students, first-time freshmen, and I can really identify who the strugglers are through this partnership, and then provide, proactive approaches such as interventions that they may need. We use a case management model where my retention specialist will specifically meet with, look through grades. For instance, they all took a grade this week. We're going to look through the grades. Now we're going to disaggregate the data and say, okay, all the first-time freshmen did poorly on the grades, or most of them. Maybe the male students did better, and we're going to kind of look at this data and identify the people that are struggling. My retention specialist will reach out to each and every one, meet with them, identify their barriers and their needs, and assist them individually in what they need to be successful. Because our ultimate goal, obviously, is completion of my programs and getting them in the workforce. So that's kind of the avenue I go, only because I'm more academic side and specific to programmatic accreditations with measuring outcomes and all of that. So that's how I tackle my partnerships.
Thank you, Dr. Flamia. Anybody else want to weigh in on the evaluative component of building partnerships? All right, okay. Any questions from participants? I know that there has been some comments about relationships taking continuous work and taking time. And with that, the question that comes to mind is, do you have dedicated staff for that work? It's always a barrier, right? We assume that this work is going to be done as part of our, there's only 24 hours a day in a day. And do you have dedicated staff that help reach out and establish partnerships, build those relationships, and of course, hope that that person doesn't leave like you alluded to, and we start over again. But anybody has dedicated staff for that? Do you have enough human resources? And what are other barriers that you face other than, the human resources and financial, of course, resources?
I guess I'll start. So in my areas, I do have some, we're talking about like recruiting and outreach, we have some positions that were specifically for CTE on the credit side of the house. But when I came in, one thing I recognized within my division, so I named everything that kind of was under, I'm over the grants for the college as well. My grant director is on here, matter of fact, and then, campus events and career services. But so it's all under the EdWIS division, economic development, innovative workforce services. But when I came in, I realized, okay, we're not together. So we have individuals that are recruiting for over here, but then we're not getting recruitment over here. So what I'm looking at now is understanding, okay, we do need more people, because if you have one or two individuals to get out there, how many, when we talk about re-engaging, we talk about all the different sort of, whether it be schools and partners and, and we're all doing it. We're all doing the work and we're out there engaging with individuals, but I realize we need some more individuals, and strategically we need to be focused. And I'm kind of really creating a department in a sense under my division where it's not just individuals just doing the work in silos, but okay, let's have a directive and how it can be, the work can be spread and it can be benefited all across the division. So I think one thing is, you never sometimes have enough resources whether it be human capital or even financial resources. So you have to be strategic in the way you're utilizing what you do have. And how can you even sometimes lean on some other sort of partners that are doing outreach. For example, our Rochester Works here within in the regions, which works with placing individuals to work, WEO and different things of that nature. They're doing a lot of outreach with VR and different things of that nature. So I said, okay, if they're out there kind of hitting the pavement, then how can we utilize them to kind of do that work, and then they can bring them back and refer them back into us in-house. So we're not doing so much of the running work and then trying to court them and bring them back in as well. So I think it's about being strategic, but I don't think we never have enough resources, as a whole of a college, because there's so many different areas that we can outreach, and like someone mentioned down in the chat, it does take time to develop these relationships. So you never seem like you have enough time, but you have to be strategic in what you do have.
Exactly. So you don't go after every partnership, but you really need to pick and choose the most strategic and the most, the ones that you have a high likelihood of success, and whatever the success is.
Yeah. And sometimes we think that the people we have the best relationship with, then they don't need a lot of attention. But I say continue to build on your strengths.
Right.
You keep going back to this person. It's almost that movie a long time ago say, they're just not that into you. Sometimes the reason, the people aren't, they never show up to the meetings. They don't, because they're just not really interested in doing it. They might not have resources themselves. They're like, oh, we don't have time to do this. But if you build on the strengths that you have, then let's be strong in those areas. Then you can have those pluses, you can have those wins.
Right. Awesome. Anybody else want to weigh in on the evaluative piece? Or there's also a question in the chat from my colleague, Esther Kim. What are some key factors, indicators that you believe every institution should track to measure the effectiveness of the partnership? How can we ensure the partnership and collaborations align with your institution's strategic goals and priorities?
I can chime in on either, but I think I'll piggyback on that last question on relationships taking work. They take a lot of work. I think I'd probably be determined one of those people that's kind of a key person in developing relationships with partners. But we have a lot of people across our college that are involved in developing relationships. They take a lot of work, and it takes a lot of different stakeholders being at the table. Maintaining those relationships is hard, giving the handoff to the right person. So I'm more of a central office, like a central person that serves a lot of different programs. So making sure that the handoff is to the right person, making sure that I'm not making too many asks of that department in engaging with partners. How much can I manage for them? How much needs to be turned over to them to manage? And that's more of like, how do I support them as much as possible? I'm thinking of the chair of my health sciences department, bringing in partners. I don't want to overburden him, but I want to support. How do you manage those relationships with them, maintain the relationship with that employer, knowing that it could expand, or whatever the partnership is, knowing that it can expand to other programs, other departments. It's challenging to nurture those relationships and expand them while respecting your colleagues who have a lot going on. Also being a part of a unique thing about the CUNY system is that it's a lot of schools very close, working collaboratively across the other colleges across the city who also have partnerships with those same partners. So there's a lot of work and a lot of communication. I think the biggest challenge for us is, how do you keep the communication open when everybody is overloaded, because there's never enough people, but you have so many people that need to be involved. And that's one of the biggest challenges in building and maintaining those relationships. Are the needs still relevant? Is that partnership still relevant? Does it need to be expanded? That's something that we're actually actively trying to find really good solutions to. How do we have a central place for information so when people want it? How do you have a central place for requests? If you have multiple departments that have requests, how do you get that information to those partnership people to go get the partners? How do you really get a very central location for that communication of what needs to happen in the partnership realm? And again, we're fortunate we have a lot of people that do it, but it adds that layer of how do you get that information disseminated.
Yeah, it's a knowledge management piece that really needs to be taken care of, and everybody needs to be on board, and what the protocols are, and where the institution is, strategically with these partnerships. Thank you, Julie. Anybody else?
I'll jump in, Dina. So on the at many of our positions in the faculty and in the administration, there's a responsibility to establish those partnerships depending upon the scope. So for example, a department chair is going to establish those working relationships with their academic or career partners out in the community to host students, whether it's on internships or what have you, for advisory boards and the like. Same thing holds true for our other senior level administrators. But the question about having sufficient resources to be able to dedicate, we do not. The benefit of Perkins, and particularly the last couple of years, we were able to leverage our Perkins funding to stand up a position that allowed us to put a dedicated individual to develop CTE pathways. And that's been really helpful for us. They, within their position description, they have a responsibility to work with regional workforce partners in CTE areas to develop pathways or strengthen pathways. And that's been a real boon for us. We can always use more resources.
Oh, I know. Everybody does, right? It's never enough. We don't have enough hours in the day, for sure. So there is a question from Antoinette McCain. How do you acquire feedback regarding the real-time industry needs of students? So Antoinette,
would Antoinette clarify, at least for me, is it the industry's needs or the students' needs?
It's actually it's kind of both. It's the students who, we make a lot of assumptions. We look at a lot of data, take a lot of research, we make assessments. But how often are we finding out from the students what their true needs are to be successful within that industry before it's too late? Meaning before they walk out our doors for one reason or another, be it completion, be it transfer, be it stop out, whatever that is. What are we doing to intervene while they're with us? While they're in this major and they're having concerns and issues, how are we addressing it? But more so, how are we even aware of it?
That's an interesting question, because what I'm trying to think about is the needs of the students, and there's a variety of different needs. I think sometimes we think of just the technical aspect of the skill. And I always say, that's what gets you employed, but that's not what keeps you employed. A lot of times it's the other sort of things that students may need in understanding a workplace and being on the job in order to be successful. Some places, one thing is if you can't measure it in the sense of like testing the students, you can just make sure you have those things implemented, that you're really concerned in saying, okay, we know we have technical skills, let's implement employability skills, let's implement some of those things, have those conversations with individuals. As much awareness as you can with bringing in industry people to come and speak to them, to truly understand the job and industry and what's needed, because that may bring up conversations and thoughts that they never thought of. They're like, okay, I don't think I'm really prepared there. I don't think I'm as sharp in that area. This is something I hadn't, thought about, because, a lot of individuals, sometimes, they start, but then they don't finish. And it may be because as they go along, they realize, okay, this is not necessarily what I thought it was, or is for me, or somebody kind of just geared me towards this way. So when you acquire regarding real-time industry needs, or with the needs of students, I think that's something probably we haven't done a great job. I think we think that, hey, the industry tells us this is the needs, this is the training that you need, and we've given you this, you should be good going forward. But I don't know if we've done a great job of really talking about tracking what are the additional needs that the students may need or they want. Just because you passed it, are you proficient in it? Do they feel like, hey, I need some more extra time to get more and more comfortable with it? So that's, that's something that until you kind of just ask, we hint around, we have conversations around it, but, to really implement something, I don't know if we have. And I know Esther asked a question, because I hate somebody ask a question and be like, okay, nobody tried to even answer the question before. And I'll just real quick, we're talking about some key factors and indicators. Every institution, the effectiveness of partnership. I think it really has to be based on, okay, what is your strategic goal? What is it you're trying to accomplish? And then you line up those indicators off of that. Some schools, I left the conference, they're going, hey, do they hire our students? Do they do placement? Do they engage with apprenticeship? So those are some maybe the indicators that you can kind of look at when you're talking about effectiveness of a partnership. I just want to kind of hit on that last question too, because I don't want us to feel like they just skipped over me.
Thank you, Dr. Cole.
I just wanted to add to this, to the idea of the difficulty with getting feedback, but the importance of getting that feedback from students. I mean, I think for us, I think the faculty in the field placements and the clinicals and, really do have a very strong feedback loop with the industry partners as well as with the students. And so it's that constant sort of work and, in their seminar work and their they have, spaces where they can actually share all that. And then that faculty can then start bringing those issues to the industry and vice versa. I think on a bigger scale, it is a difficult thing. I think it is something that, we've been trying to do specifically with women in STEM, trying to ask more questions of the students, of industry partners, and actually of our faculty even, to try to distill really some of the critical needs to make those experiences better. And so it really is, it's, like I said sort of before, it's breaking down a lot of students and a lot of experiences and partnerships into smaller buckets so that you can, you have people that can actually address those concerns and feedback and lead those sort of groups. And I think that we're trying to do some more of that here for sure, but it's a challenge.
Thank you, Dave. Julie, President Keegan, or Dr. Flamio?
Just to piggyback off of what Dave just said, it's very similar. And I think looking at STEM degrees and especially non-traditionals in STEM, that's a major area where we're seeking that feedback and trying to implement support. I think getting information from students it's easier on a smaller scale than on the grand scale. One of the things that we've done, and remember, I work more closely with students in our certificate courses, and now we're engaging more with our degree students in this, both at the same time in this more sector-based approach. We do a lot of what we call experiential learning events, where we're hearing what the needs are from a more really meeting in the career services piece with students. Okay, these are the things that they're saying they need help with. Going to industry to partner to build events, whether it be career panels, workshops. For a lot of our STEM students in tech, there's a lot of technical skills that they need to practice, that you need a technical person with them. So creating spaces for our students to engage in industry. And then almost to that assessment piece as well, doing a survey post-event to assess the students. How did this help? Did it improve? I think one of the big questions is, did it improve your confidence as you're moving forward? Are you more confident in your interviewing skills? Are you more confident in a technical skill? How did that improve your goals for the future? And one of the other questions we ask is, what else do you need? What else do you want? What other workshops do you wish we were offering? And so again, it's very small scale because we don't have a lot of attendance at those events yet, but it's one way that we're trying to get the feedback from our students and then ask industry to fill because we don't have the bandwidth or necessarily the skills to do it. But it also then gives our students the ability to interact with industry to grow their network and meet some of those needs that they have. But expanding that to a larger scale is really the challenge.
Yeah. And I know that we have done some work with other institutions, and they tell us that, again, going back to what the keynote has presentation had highlighted, voicing and the voices of the learners and centering those voices. And I think some of the institutions do plans for the students once they arrive to the institution, even before they start their academic career. They have them develop plans, action plans, where they really specify the areas of skills, whether soft or hard, that they would like to focus on and how they're gonna advance it. And then you do assessments with the students all throughout to make sure that they stay, stay connected to their plan, advancing their plan. So
can I add one other thing is around this is the sort of importance of bringing alumni back into programming, like very specifically, and that certain areas do it really well here. The one really highlight is that we have the Center for Cybersecurity Excellence in Cybersecurity that here has it really has an ecosystem where alumni are very involved in the programming of what happens in there. And I think there's opportunities in other areas, but there's talent. We talk about talent as it relates to, we have these students that are talented, and that industry really needs to see that talent, right? And we need to be able to figure out how to bridge that to make that talent get into those opportunities. At the same time, I'm finding that we have a lot of talent that we need to honestly use and tap to help the college, and in some fashion, because those students that are doing really well or participating or leading clubs or different things are people that can really help our institution and help it grow for the future. And so we've been trying to do some of that as well as it relates to certain CTE pathways, to different levels of success. But before they leave our college, they have and obviously once they get alumni, have a really mechanism for them to come back. That all is so critical, I feel, to developing our feedback, something Antoinette was talking about.
Awesome. So there is a question in the chat. What area does the dedicated person dedicated to develop CTE pathways fall under? Career services? I think that's for you, Dave, or Dr. Flemia, the retention person. Is that part of career services? Do they fall under career services?
I can speak in regards to our college. So as we mentioned earlier, a lot of different, and I think it was Julie that talked about, there's a lot of different people working on pathways, depending on what type of pathways you're looking at. So it might be, this is my division of nursing, physical, allied health, but then you might have, computer technology or something else working on different pathways. I know our academic affairs works on CTE pathways with high schools and with BOCES that are related to allied health, whereas I specifically work with maybe four-year institutions on different types of pathways, clinical partners with pathways. So I think that we have to get better at making it more accessible to everybody, as Julie mentioned, so everybody knows what everyone's working on and what we have, because we don't want to be duplicating efforts. I think that, we also have another department that works on specific articulation agreements. So there's many, many people working on different things all at once, and that's great, but we need to come together to talk about it, maybe. A partnership meeting, or, what are we working on, with the college, with this division, what specifically do we have going on? So I think that is the struggle. Is there really one individual? No, probably not. At any one college, I can't imagine, but.
Yeah. So it really is juggling and coordination within and coordination without. So I commend you all for the incredible work you do in this area, and thank you so much. We are out of time. We can spend the entire 6 hours talking about these issues. And well, thank you so much, Dave Ahrens, Westchester Community College, Julie Vachon, LaGuardia Community College, Dr. Robin Cole, Monroe Community College, President Joe Keegan from North Country Community College, and Dr. Diane Flamel from Niagara Community College. Thank you so very much for an incredibly enlightening conversation. We really appreciate it and wish you the best as you go forward. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And now we
Sure.
are going to transition automatically to our Vanguard ceremony. And I'd like to introduce my colleague, Esther Kim, soon to become Dr. Esther Kim, and who will introduce our award winners and talk about their accomplishments. So I'm going to highlight our award winners first so you can know who they are. And Esther, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Refke. Okay, so this Vanguard Awards recognize the outstanding post-secondary student pursuing career and technical educational program. They're non-traditional for their gender. And like every year, 8 students are selected from an institution across the state. And we recognize their accomplishment, their outstanding performance, and their resilience in the face of challenges. So we are very pleased to recognize this 8th student today who exemplified the spirit of the Vanguard Award. So let's start with, so our first award winner is Alexandra Dalaya.
Hi to everybody. Thank you for having me today. My name is Alexandra Dalaya. I'm from Suffolk County Community College. My major is cybersecurity and information assurance. And I am from Ukraine, and I understand what is important to do your job very correct and with passion. I started my career in an accountant, and IT for me degree was not available because I don't have money to pursue the second degree. And after 20 years, I was lucky to get opportunity to do a very difficult profession such like as cybersecurity. This is very difficult profession because you have a lot of tough IT terminology and new technology. And after you need to spend a lot of time to study, and after you understand when you gain a knowledge what you can do this, pursue this career, and you can understand this IT terminology and do better communication with people and technology, and even a little bit gain some knowledge of psychology because you need to understand how cyber criminals thinking are. In 2005, I bought my first computer for college in my mom's credit card, and for me this was, oh my gosh, some dream computer. And nowadays this dream became true, and I can understand not only from user side but from side IT technology, how to secure networking, how cyber criminals work, and how to protect computer, or even to hack computer. And finally, I want to say what, as a woman on this field, I feel what I can stand for women's succeed on women's rights and further women's gender equivalent. And thank you for having me today.
Okay, yeah, so if I continue on like introducing Alexandra's outstanding performance, She is pursuing a degree in cybersecurity, as she mentioned, at the Suffolk County Community College. And she started the program in like 2021, and she has been a top student, earning A's in every courses that she has completed at the Suffolk Community College. And she ranked 5th place out of the 17 at a Long Island Capture the Flag competition, and was a part of the 6-member student team who competed at the Department of Energy Cyber Force. She is fulfilling a promise she made to her father to be bold, confident, and inspire other women, as she mentioned, in the field to make a better living for their family and themselves. So congratulations, Alexandra.
Thank you and congratulations to everybody who is winner.
Okay, let me move on to our next award winner, Yaelnes Rodriguez Diaz.
Yes, hello.
Hello. So she's pursuing a degree in animation motion graphic at a Borough of Manhattan Community College, and she was described as an excellent student with a good sense of humor and an immense intellectual curiosity. And she became very interested in like becoming a digital artist and working in the field of animation and motion graphic because she wished to like bring the happiness to the family. And just as a cartoon brought like a brighter laughter and good vibes to her own family when they watch the TV together. As a Latina animator, she's looking forward to giving children the same good memories and she had when she was a kid, like watching those cartoons. She hopes that there will be like more Latinas in the world of animation, and who can create a like voice and contribute to the generation of happiness as she does. So, Yaelnes, we want to like hear like, I mean, what do you like your thoughts on receiving this award and like how this award means to you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I think my computer is freezing right now and I am trying to, such a good moment to have this issue. So I am going to be joining from my phone. I'm really sorry for the issue.
Yeah, we can hear you, Yaelnes.
Oh, okay. So, well, as you have heard, I am Yaelnes Rodriguez Diaz and my college. It is a pleasure to have been here and to have this wonderful opportunity. I am here thanks to my professor, Susan Stratton, because she gave me the opportunity and told me about the Vanguard Award. So I am here. I just tried it and I didn't know I was going to be able to be part of this. So I am very thankful.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next Vanguard Award winner is Timothy Doolittle. Unfortunately, he cannot join here because of a death in his family. But Timothy is pursuing a degree in nursing at SUNY Broome Community College. He has been recognized by his peers as a source of knowledge and support, as he always like demonstrate like strong knowledge of nursing concept and like strong clinical nursing skills. And as a class vice president, he has assisted like his classmates in reaching their goals of completing their degrees and graduating. He's definitely fully aware of the significance of like a male nurse, especially in his current working environment where most of his peers are female. As he said, nursing represent like all his core values and help him like live his purpose. So Timothy looks forward to like continuing this journal as a male nurse, but he did send his regrets that he could not be able to join today, but congratulations,
Timothy.
Okay, our next winner is Jasmine Frederick.
Hello.
Yes, so Jasmine is pursuing a degree in radio and television production at Suffolk County Community College. She was described as 100% dedicated to her education and performance. She plays a critical leadership critical leadership role in the radio and television production program, and her peers look up to her as a role model due to her positive and like helpful and strong production skills. She's known to be a go-to student. Her goal is to like shine a light on those who have experienced like hardship, but who have like never given up themselves, no matter how long or like how difficult the road has been. So she wants to encourage others and spread the positivity, so that like people can overcome their like doubt and be the person they always dreamed to become. So congratulations, Jasmine. Would you mind? Would you mind like share your thoughts on receiving?
Yes, of course. Well, first and foremost, I just want to say I'm truly grateful and honored to have received this award. Like the other award winners, we were put up by our professors. So for me, at least, it came as a shock, and I just really was like I said, shocked for the award. And I just, told my story. And like you said, I really like to shine a light on people's hardships, but those that continue to push on, because it's only a failure when we give up. And so if we never give up and we find a new, different strategy to get where it is we want to, really anything is possible. And as a person that just to be even here, and before I've been rejected in the early stages when I'm still learning my technical field in video production, or whether it's video editing, and just to have continued pressing on and to now be here and speaking amongst a bunch of educators, just about what I've done and where I plan to go, is really just an honor. So I'm just grateful to be here. And it's really great to see the educators and them fighting in their respective institutions for their students, and really trying to gain that partnership and connect, because it's such a big deal. And I know that a lot of the educators were talking about the student's perspective. Well, as a former student, I would say that there is a little bit of a disconnect when we're learning these technical fields, and then we're trying to go into the work field. And it's really, you have to get those partnerships, get those networks. So it's definitely great that you're out here fighting for your students. And I'm sure on behalf of them, they're all really appreciative for it. So I'm just grateful and honored to be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next Vanguard winner is Joseph Goldstein. Joseph is pursuing a degree in early childhood education at Westchester Community College, and he was described as a diligent and excellent student who has always demonstrated his extensive knowledge and dedication. He has a passion for like not only working with children, but also using music as to engage children. So he loves to bring his own guitar and sing with children, because like he knows from his experience that the music can bring like children more interested in like what they're working on and more actively engaged in the classroom. So he knows the importance of being a male role model for like a young children, and believe that men can bring like a different perspective and a different energy to a learning environment. So he hopes to like give all children this learning opportunity and support like he had, regardless of like their special needs. So Joseph, do you mind sharing your thoughts? Or
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Kim, for putting this all together. Thank you to everyone here, and congratulations to the other Vanguard winners, here and afar. Thank you for this incredible honor, and congratulations to everyone here. I wish you much success in your career paths. Thank you, Ms. Kim, for your patience with me and the questions during the interview process. I definitely want to thank Professor Scro, who is here today, my mentor at WCC, who nominated me for this award. Professor, you have been a role model for early childhood education majors, and you bring this wonderful energy to your teaching. Throughout my time at WCC, she supported me in ways that went above and beyond. And, she had a tremendous impact on my college experience and helped me to gain valuable practical experience, which allowed me to get where I am now, a full-time employee in a preschool for children with special needs. I wish I could give her an award for all this. I definitely want to thank my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, my aunt, my grandparents. You know, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for them. You know, I'm very fortunate to have a loving and supportive family who've always been, you know, the best cheerleaders anybody could want. You know, society often views a field like early childhood education as one that is traditionally for women. I don't really see it as that. A main benefit of my choosing this career is that I can be a male role model for young children. And like Ms. Kim said, men bring a different perspective and a different energy to a learning environment. Unfortunately, I've met people who don't think of early childhood education as a real career. They question what could be so hard about babysitting children and why I needed to go to college for it. Well, this attitude downplays the importance of early childhood education, and it's a foundation to a child's development, and it undervalues the adults who choose to go into this essential field. You know, of course, I encourage women to go and join the early childhood education field, but I really encourage more men to really go out and try to do this. You know, we need more men in the field of education and early childhood education. And, you know, again, thank you again for this incredible honor. And, you know, to the other people here, to the winners, congratulations.
Woo! Congratulations, Joseph. Okay, so our next award winner is Delaney Nichols. Delaney Nichols. So Delaney is pursuing a degree in welding technology at Alfred State College, and she was described as like motivated student. Her motivation, like pursuing like welding, was cultivated as a child growing up around an auto body shop where her father and her brother did a lot of like auto like work. She has volunteered to demonstrate welding skills to a local high school student, as well as like several local Girl Scout teams or Girl Scout troops, sorry. And over the summer of 2022, she was an assistant teacher for the summer program, and she taught like a lot of like basics of welding. And she realized through her experience that teaching is a great way for her to like deepen her knowledge. And in the future, she wants to become a teacher and encourage others who are also interested in pursuing welding technology. So Delaney, like any words for receiving this word?
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to say thank you to you know, like my friends and my family, and especially my teacher, Guy Hewson, who's in the meeting with us today. Guy has been like a really big mentor for me, and he's pushed me to be much past any bounds that I ever could have thought I would have pushed past without meeting him and having him as my teacher. And I'm just really happy to be in the place that I am today, and to have come so far. When I was first at school, I was really, really anxious, and I was scared of what it would be like, just because it was a new place, and I was in the minority in that new place. So yeah, I'm just very thankful for where I am today, and thankful to the people who have helped me get to this point.
Congratulations, Delaney.
Congratulations. Okay, the next Vanguard Award winner is Diona Petty. Diona is pursuing a degree in computer information system at Borough of Manhattan Community College. And she was described as highly talented and an excellent A student. And she has been actively engaged at Fountain House and dedicate a lot of time to like helping others, especially with the IT support. She was able to help others to get involved in like IT and become familiar with the computers. So of like 1900, 1800 Linux administrators working in the US today, less than 10% are women and half are like African American. And as a woman and as a African American, she would like to become a Linux administrator, making a mark in the field to prove that woman can do it. So she's prepared for like any challenges that come her way, and like doesn't want to waste her time and energy worrying too much about what like others would think. So she's ready for the challenges. So Diana, any words that you want to share?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I'd like to just thank my professor, Professor Stratton, for like just believing in me for this award. I was really nervous about coming back to school after such a long time, and just having someone, just hearing good things made me feel more comfortable and confident coming back. And yeah, it was very helpful. I also like to thank my parents. Without them, I wouldn't even know anything about computers, because they bought me all of my equipment, and yeah, and sorry, I'm very nervous. And I'd also like to thank Fountain House, because they really helped me with my confidence and my mental health recovery. I probably wouldn't even be here to be speaking to anybody if it wasn't for Fountain House. And congratulations to all the winners. Yeah, that's it.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay, our final award winner is Andrew Trumer. Andrew is pursuing a degree in massage therapy at Queensborough Community College, and his passion and outstanding performance earned him the respect from his peers and as well as his professors. And he's a leader within the campus mindfulness club and has been a motivating force to his cohort, initiating like extra open lab practices, as well as like organizing and like leading a study groups. As massage was something that he has always like a passion for, his goal is to become a licensed massage therapist, and like not only to help people like heal body or like mind or emotions through like massage, but also he wants to like encourage others to stand up for what they want to do. So as a gay man like pursuing the massage therapy, he's aware of this stigma within his community of like male massage therapists, but he's definitely hoping to like change that negative perception and like redefine the massage as a healing therapy. So Andrew, any words of, any thoughts on receiving this reward?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much, future Dr. Kim, and congratulations to you as well. Mostly, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone here today. Your words were very inspiring, and I think that you are all the future of education. I think more importantly, thank you to everyone else who shared their stories, the other Vanguard Award winners. It's really amazing to hear sort of how we've all come to these places in our lives. I know personally, this has been a journey, and I think the last 3 years have taught us that if you're not pursuing your passion, there's really no purpose in pursuing something. So I think that as proof of all of us pursuing these careers, especially because they're considered gender non-traditional, it means that we really have a true passion for it. And I know, speaking for myself, massage therapy is something that I've always really enjoyed. I think that until I started taking classes, I did not understand the rigor or the fight that I might be having with this this sort of work. And it's sort of my goal now in this final sort of leg of becoming a licensed massage therapist, to continue to encourage people that consensual, non-sexual, non-violent touch is actually incredibly beneficial and is something that we should all be encouraged to pursue a little bit more deeply. And I think massage is a really incredible sort of gateway into that. And I think that it's going to really sort of help heal people both from the outside, but moving from the outside in, and encouraging everyone to sort of understand that there is a deeper meaning to touch, and that it is something that can cross genders and can cross sexuality, and those things are not necessarily important when you're having those one-on-one interactions. But thank you to everyone here, and thank you. I think I'm the only person from Queensborough here today, but thank you to all of them. They were incredibly supportive in this. And just a shout out to them. I mean, the staff there is really spectacular. The faculty on staff have done a really incredible job encouraging all of us to pursue our goals and to allow us to explore within our field a little bit more deeply as to why we are there and how we can benefit not only for ourselves, but how we can benefit our communities. So thank you.
Congratulations, Andrew. Okay, so before we wrap up, is there any additional word that you want anybody want to share here about like this reward before I wrap things up, or everyone is okay? Okay, then I mean, again, congratulations to all Vanguard Award. I mean, you're like a truly role model, and we really wish you continue your success on your journey. I mean, be resilient with the challenges. I mean, you guys are ready for it. So again, congratulations. So I mean, I'll do claps. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Rafki. And Dina, can you mind wrapping this up for us?
Thank you, Esther, so much. Congratulations, Vanguard winners. You are incredible role models to all of us and to the students that are coming behind you and with you. You are really our future, and this is what it's all about. This is what's really building community, building economies is all about. Thank you, and best of luck for your future. Just for everybody else, we have taped interviews with each of the winners that is currently being edited and will be uploaded on the NET website. You can use them to inspire other students to walk in their path and to really pursue these wonderful careers and enrich our economy, enrich our communities. Thank you again. Congratulations. And thank you everybody for your participation in the conference. We hope that the discussions were valuable to you, and please keep in touch with us and be on the lookout for future events that NET will be organizing. Thank you all, and hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Take care.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Thank you.